Hi, my name is Allie. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. I make mommy and baby videos along with pregnancy updates and pretty much anything else I come up with. And today I wanted to sit down and share a video that's very personal and something I actually caused me to want to make videos on YouTube, and that is my postpartum depression story / journey. So a little backstory, I have 3 children and I am pregnant with our 4th, and I wanted to just sit down today and to share my story and kind of journey of going through postpartum depression, and hoping in any way maybe this can encourage another mom who's going through it or might know someone going through it. I'm not a doctor, I don't know any medical wise anything, and so definitely if you feel like you're going through any of these symptoms I might say, or feel like you might have postpartum depression, please go to your doctor, your midwife, and talk to them. It is so important, and so important to have family and people close to you. With my first 2, I actually didn't have postpartum depression. With my first, I had a couple days of the classic baby blues and would just cry for no reason and stuff like that, but they went away after a few days. And then with my second son, I had like a week and a half of baby blues, so they did last a little longer, but again they went away. So with my third, I wasn't really expecting anything. I had heard of postpartum depression, but then I assumed it was, oh, like someone is depressed about something. I was like, and I'm happy, God's blessed me with 2 children and I have 1 on the way. I didn't have anything to be sad about, so that's why I assumed it was, and that's far from it. And so I didn't really think anything of it. Towards the end of my pregnancy with my third, my daughter, motorcycles making noise. Towards the end of my pregnancy with my daughter, my third, I noticed I was a bit more emotional that pregnancy, but I thought, well, some people had told me with a girl sometimes you're more emotional. And so I was like, oh, everything's fine. And my midwives always would remind me, you know, be aware. This can happen to anybody. It can happen during any pregnancy. And so I always knew to be aware. But again, I didn't think much of it. And so when I had my daughter, hers was actually the smoothest and fastest birth out of my 3 so far. And so everything went well. The only thing that was different is she was born during our biggest blizzard we had that year. And it was a little hectic getting to the hospital, but we were so thankful we left earlier because we got there in good timing. And so everything went well. The only difference with that birth is I felt like my recovery was harder. With my first 2, with my son Nathan, my first, I had broke my tailbone. I had a lot of trouble breastfeeding. I had a 48-hour labor. It was a lot on my body, but once I got over it and I healed, everything was fine. And my son Oliver, again, my body recovered fine, everything from the labor. But this time around, I feel like my body was having trouble recovering. For the first several weeks after I had her, I had a constant headache, which I ended up looking it up. I'm thinking it may have been what they call an epidural headache. The epidural I had with my daughter, it went in odd the first time. It terrified me. And so it didn't go in right, and I think that may have caused why I had a constant headache for 4 weeks. And then on top of that, my bleeding lasted a lot longer. And I ended up at 4 weeks postpartum getting the stomach flu horribly. It was the worst stomach flu I've ever had. I was so sick. And so my body was just wiped. So I just felt like it was really hard to recover. But birth-wise, everything went fine. My daughter nursed perfectly fine, which I was so thankful for. But my body was having trouble. Around right before I turned 6 weeks postpartum, I remember thinking I didn't get the baby blues. I was like, yeah, it's been hard, you know, my body recovering, but I didn't get the baby blues. I've been nursing, everything's been going good. And then that's when it all changed. Literally, I think a day or 2 later, that after I was thinking, I didn't get baby blues, that's so nice, that all of a sudden my daughter, when she was almost 6 weeks old, was sleeping solid through the night, which is a rarity. And so she was sleeping solid through the night, and then it dawned on me, I'm like, my daughter is sleeping solid through the night and my children are all asleep, and I was wide awake at like 2 in the morning, and I had no reason why. And that is when the insomnia started. And now that I look back at it all, I see all the little things like leading up to it that I didn't notice then. I kept feeling like something was bothering me, but I couldn't pinpoint it. I kept feeling really agitated for no reason, but again, I couldn't pinpoint it. So I just assumed maybe it's because the house is messy and I just need to clean it, so I clean everything. And then I would think, well, maybe it's just because I need to fix this up, make it look better. And so I do that, and I would still feel agitated. And it was this weird kind of, just something was bothering me, but I didn't know what. So I have my book here of kind of things I have written down of everything that kind of happened, because it's kind of, my children apparently drew on the back of it. And so it's kind of, some of it is a little fuzzy because it's been over almost a year and a half now since it first started. But I wanted to have this to help me remember, and just the different things that went on. Remember, it was almost exactly when I turned 6 weeks postpartum. I had my 6-week postpartum checkup with my midwife's coming up in a couple days, and it was like all of a sudden something snapped. I went from being perfectly fine but feeling kind of off, like I could not figure out what was bothering me, to all of a sudden, it was at nighttime, I remember, and it was like something snapped, and I had like a full-blown panic attack, which if you've ever had one, you know what they feel like. I had struggled a bit when I was younger with anxiety and panic attacks, but really I hadn't dealt with it in a long time after I had gotten saved. God really took away a lot of that anxiety and things I had struggled with when I was younger, but I knew what they were. And so when it happened, I was like, oh, I'm like, this is a panic attack. And it was like a full-blown one, and I was like, okay, I'm like, I've had these before, I've dealt with them before, but it wouldn't go away, and there was no reason I was having it. And then it was like everything snowballed after that. All of a sudden, it's like something clicked. I remember talking to my husband and being like, something is not right. And all of a sudden I started having this horrible anxiety of like, but there was no reason for it. I was so anxious and terrified of something that I didn't know what it was though, mixed with, I all of a sudden got like this depression, which I have never dealt with depression before. And I was like, I'm not sad about anything, nothing is wrong, but there's this haunting, depressed feeling that is constantly like nagging me. And then I had full-blown insomnia. I could not sleep at all. Like I was wide awake, even though my daughter, who was 6 weeks old, was sleeping solid. And so that I knew something wasn't right. And all of a sudden I had like no appetite, and I just, everything exploded. The only way I could explain it to my midwife is I felt like someone took all of my emotions and all my hormones and just exploded. The next day, after it all was kind of hitting, I ended up, we had gone into town, and I was trying to see like, okay, what exactly was wrong? At this point, when everything was kind of starting, we didn't know fully. And then we came home that night, I was like, okay, something's not right. My husband had looked up postpartum depression symptoms because he'd kind of wondered the past week or two why something seemed off. And I literally could go down a list, and you can find them online. You can Google postpartum depression symptoms, and I could literally check off every single thing on that list. And I was like, I have that. And it was like to an extreme. And so we'd call my midwives right away, and they said, okay, they're like, get some rest over the weekend, try to sleep. They said, we want to make sure it's not just you need more sleep. And so it was a Friday, and then over the weekend it just got worse and worse. I would either be bawling 24/7, like just constantly crying for no reason, just crying and crying, mixed with feeling like every second I was going to get a panic attack, but I wasn't. And then I would switch over and have this horrible depressed feeling, and then I would switch over again to another emotion. I was like, it felt like my brain would not stop. I couldn't sleep at all, I couldn't do anything. The midwives, they ended up prescribing me something to help with sleep, which for the first week I was on that, and it's kind of blurry. The medicine kind of like just made me foggy headed, but I ended up reacting to it and having to go off of it. And so that one ended up being a no-go. For the first week or so I was on a medicine to help me sleep, because they said you need sleep. No matter what, you need to sleep and you need to eat. And so I came in on Monday, and it was my 6-week postpartum midwife checkup, and I was in there for postpartum depression. I remember they gave me a sheet, and I sat down and I looked at it all, and I was like, I can check off all of these. I sat down with my midwives, and basically we just explained everything. They were pretty much 100% sure I had postpartum depression. And after kind of going everything, I realized I had postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and postpartum OCD. So I had all three. And I never had the psychosis one, the really scary one. I never had that, which I was so thankful. And so they wanted to start me on a medicine. They knew I really wanted to keep breastfeeding, but I also knew health-wise that it was more important that I got better. And so I said, if I have to wean, I will, but I would love to keep breastfeeding. So they started me on Zoloft. And they said, they're like, it's not an instant thing. And that's something I have learned being on it, that it's not an instant bing, I feel better. It takes a while. It was a good 2 weeks of struggling through everything. The next 2 weeks were just kind of trying to survive, it almost seemed. My husband, I was so thankful. His work was so understanding, and he was able to take off those 2 weeks because I literally couldn't function. I went from being able to take care of everything, loving to take care of everything, to being able to like literally do nothing. I was just like curled up in a ball, either crying or having a panic attack or having a horrible depressed feeling or feeling like something horrible was going to happen, and then just like repeated itself over and over and over all day. I had tried another medicine to help sleep, and that one didn't work at all, and I was on Benadryl, I think, for like a good month and a half, I think. After those 2 weeks, I remember it really clearly. I'd been on the medicine like 10 days. I was close to being on it for like 2 weeks. I'm out of breath because I just ran up and down the stairs. That's pretty bad. And so I remember getting off the phone from our pastor in Texas, and he was just encouraging me and asking how we were doing. And I remember all of a sudden it was like my brain went quiet. I had told my husband, I was trying to explain, I'm like, I feel like my brain won't stop. And I've talked to other women who've struggled with postpartum depression and saying the same thing. It's like your brain just won't turn off. I'm out of breath. And I remember it like went quiet, and I looked at my husband. I was like, my brain is quiet. I'm like, I feel like my emotions are not pinballing like everywhere, and my brain's just quiet. And I was like, even if this only lasts like 10 minutes, I'm like, thank you, Lord, that I could have some relief. And from then on, the best way I could describe it, it was like the medicine was taking care of, it was like leveling out each emotion. Like one day I felt like my anxieties were really bad, and then they kind of leveled out. And then I felt like my OCD like that was really bad and would level out, and it like went through each thing. And one of the last ones was like the depression and feeling that something horrible was gonna happen. And then it like leveled out, and after that I felt like that's when my body started to try to like recover. It was still a long road from there, because this all happened in March of 2017, and so it was a while before everything kind of settled down. Another side note, what was very interesting was both my mom, who lives with us actually, and my husband's parents were actually both out of the country. My mom was in Okinawa visiting my sister and her husband, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law were in Germany. And so when this happened, everyone was gone. My midwives were like, is there anyone at your church who can help? And I'm like, or like family? I was like, they're all gone. Even my sister-in-law, who lived down the road, was in Florida. Everyone was gone. But I was so thankful. Some sweet friends at church, she went out of her way to just help me get out of the house, to help me with the kids, and I was so thankful for that. And that was one of the things in this video that I wanted to encourage moms, if you're going through this, is to reach out, to have someone help you. And everyone's going to deal with it differently. That's something I have learned so much with postpartum depression, is I would compare myself and be like, well, this person struggled with it and they were able to do it without medicine, or this person did that, and I would beat myself up being like, I'm not getting it over as fast as this person, and realizing everyone struggles with it differently, everyone goes through it differently, and to love each other, to encourage each other, and to help each other. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to film this video, is if there's any way this can be an encouragement, or maybe to help someone realize maybe what some of their symptoms might be pointing towards. I remember watching a video on YouTube, I think during my pregnancy with my daughter, of someone who went through postpartum depression, and I was like, huh. And then when I started going through all this and realizing that's really similar to what she said, and that video was an encouragement to me and helped me kind of realize, okay, this is this is what that is. So basically, I was trying to figure out a way to summarize all this into a video that wouldn't be like an hour long. And so basically, yes, I've been on the medicine now for over a year. I've been on it while I'm pregnant with our fourth as well. And that was another thing that I struggled with, was once my body started to recover, once the medicine started to help even everything out, it was very slow going after that. We had to change my dose a few times, and I really knew I was starting to feel better when I started sleeping again. Once I was not having to take Benadryl to fall asleep, I remember it the first time of being able to go to bed without taking anything, and just how nice that felt, and realizing that's when my body was starting to heal, when my appetite came back, and really then I could tell my body was recovering. And the next thing I ran into is being terrified if I ever went through it again. That was a scary thing, because me and my husband really wanted, if God blesses us with more children, we'd love to have more children. And I was like, half of me wants to have more children, and the other half of me is petrified of having more children. And so that was definitely something me and my husband really had to pray about and seek the Lord about and really talk about a lot, because I remember just like it was a conflict in my head of being like, I want to have more children, and the other half of me is going, no, that is terrifying. And so basically, when we found out we were pregnant, my daughter she was close to a year, and for the first day or two it was terrifying. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go through all of this again. But then I was so thankful that it's like the pregnancy helped my hormones in a way and has kind of balanced them out a bit. And I've had my ups and downs this pregnancy, but I definitely feel a lot better, and so I'm very thankful of that. My wives and me are kind of preparing. I'm still on a medicine this pregnancy, but I'm on one of the safest ones to be on when you're pregnant and breastfeeding. I am also trying to get my body as healthy as I can, physically and emotionally and everything, to be ready for the postpartum period. But yeah, I don't know what to expect after I have this little guy. I'm hoping that everything will be okay, but I also know that I could get it again. And that's why I feel like it's so important to have family and to have friends there to support you. I'm sorry if this video kind of seems all over the place. I was trying to figure out a way how to put the past almost year and a half of like going through it in a video. And my video is already getting long, so I'm gonna have fun editing. But yes, I really wanted to just make this video to encourage moms out there. If they know someone who's going through it, or they might think they have it themselves, or they've gone through it themselves, that you're not alone, that this does happen, and everyone gets it differently. That is something I've learned so much, is that everyone gets it differently, and to not compare ourselves with another person, be like, they recovered faster than me, or they had it different, because everyone does. And sometimes it can be so hormonal, and sometimes it can have other things that tie in with it. I felt like for me, all I could explain is that it felt so hormonal. It felt like I was fine, and then my hormones exploded, and there was no getting them back in place. And so, but I think the thing that stuck out to me the most, and going through it, was realizing just how scary it was, and realizing the women go through it that don't have the support, and that don't know Christ and don't have God to cling to in it. And I think that's what stuck out to me so much going through it. I was like, I cannot imagine women going through this who don't have a husband supporting them, who don't have a family there to help when they can, and to not have Christ to cling to. I basically, for the first several weeks, was just like, everything was chaos, and I was just like, Lord, help me to focus on you, and to know that God is good. And I know that even though I might not know why I had postpartum depression, and why, I might get it again, but to know that God is good, He has a reason for it. And after going through it, there's so many different things. I feel like me and my husband's relationship was strengthened, and I feel like so many different relationships were strengthened through it, and people helping me through it. And so I wanted to make this video. If you know anyone out there, or if you are someone who's struggling with it, that I'd love to pray for you and to be there and encourage you, and to know you're not alone. Please seek doctors' help. Please seek family's help. and to know that you can get through it. I think that was the biggest thing. It almost reminded me of labor, of like, you know you can get through it, but at the same time you're like, it's never gonna end. And it's kind of the same thing. You can get through it, and to seek help. But I hope this video is not kind of chaos and all over the place, but I just really wanted to make it to encourage other moms and to know that it's normal when we go through it. It's a higher percentage than we realize go through it, and to be there for each other. Again, for stopping by my channel today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping to get out a few more as I'm getting closer to baby number 4's big arrival, which will be the end of August, unless he comes really late and it's September. But we'll see. But thanks again for stopping by.